Don't forget to like and subscribe to Jolie Knots Crochet. Share with your friends. Hit that little notification bell so you can get notified when new patterns release. All our videos are available in left and right-handed tutorials. Hi everyone, welcome back to Jolie Knots Crochet. I'm Crystal and today we are going to be making this 2x2 V-neck pullover. Now this sweatshirt is an oversized sweatshirt. If you want it to be fitted, you're going to go down a size. If you want it to be a little bit more oversized, you'll go up a size. Now this is going to be worked in vertical rows, and what we're going to do is start from the middle of our front panel, and we will be working increasing on one side for the neckline and then working in straight rows for the rest of the panel. When that's completed, we'll be working from this side on the other side of where we started, working in vertical rows, increasing for the neckline, and then stopping where the end of our panel will be. The back panel will be worked in a separate piece, the same as we did our front panel, however we won't be increasing. And then we're going to sew the two together, continue on with the arms, and then we've got our ribbing in the wrist and in the waistband. Now we will be using two different hook sizes for this project. We will be using a 5mm hook for the body of your sweater and a 4mm hook for the band. The yarn that I used for this one is a 3-weight yarn. I used Bernat Baby Sport. This is a 100% acrylic yarn. It is a light 3-weight yarn, and this comes in very large skeins of 12.3 ounces, approximately 1,256 yards. I used about 1,500 yards for my size extra large. I will go ahead and scroll on the screen here the sizes that are available for this project and the approximate amount of yardage that you are going to need to use. Now this sweater can be made with a lighter or a heavier weight yarn depending on the weather and where you are, and you can just follow the gauge for the item. The gauge that you're going to be needing for this project is 15 to 16 stitches across. I fall right in between my 15 and 16 stitches for 4 inches with a 5mm hook, and you will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows in height, also for 4 inches. So you can use a lighter yarn if you like. This is somewhat of a heavier 3-weight yarn, the Bernat Baby yarn, and this is what I used for my project, and this is what I will use for the tutorial to teach you guys how to get started. Okay, so to get started with this project, I am going to take my yarn and working the body of my sweater. I'm starting with a 5mm hook. So I am going to get that right onto my yarn, and all sizes are going to have the same starting chain. Larger sizes are going to continue increasing, which is going to increase the length and the width at the same time, and smaller sizes will stop their increasing sooner. As I get farther into the pattern, I will explain the sizing differences and scroll up on the screen for you your exact amount of repeats and stitches that you're going to need. Starting out, you are going to chain 70. All sizes are going to chain 70. I am going to be making a smaller swatch, so I will have something smaller than you, but everybody's size will be 70. So I'm working with a starting chain of 10. You should have 70. Now into the third chain from your hook, we are going to place 3 double crochets. your initial chain 2, the two chains that we skipped right here, these will not count as a stitch. Your 3 double crochets will count as a stitch. Now what we're going to do is double crochet into every stitch all the way down. Okay, so I have just reached the end of my first row. Of course, mine is much smaller than yours is going to look, but this is what it should look like much longer. Getting started on row 2, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. And into this first double crochet right here, we're going to put a single crochet. Now we'll chain 2. We are going to skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, but in between that second and third stitch, that's where we're going to work our single crochet. So we're not working into the top of the stitches, we're working between the stitches. So skipping 1, skipping 2, but before your third stitch, that's where you're going to work your single crochet. Chain 2, skip your 2 stitches, work your single crochet between your second and your third. And that's what you will work all the way down the row. Now when you get to the end and you have 2 stitches and then your third stitch is your last stitch, you're going to just pop a single crochet right into the top of that third stitch. Now this is your increase row. This is where you should have your increase. So now we're going to chain 2, which will not count as a stitch. Turn your work, and into this single crochet right here, we're going to put 3 double crochets. Into your chain 2 space, we're going to put 2 double crochets. Into your next chain 2 space, 2 double crochets. And you're going to place 2 double crochets in your chain 2 space going all the way down your row. When you get to your last chain 2 space, you'll have your 2 double crochets, and the only thing left beyond that is going to be your single crochet. You'll put a double crochet right on top of that single crochet, and that is going to end your row. Now what we're going to do is repeat rows 2 and 3. 2 and 3. So I'm going to show you this one more time. Chain 1, turn your work, single crochet into the first stitch. Chain 2, skip 2 stitches between your second and your third, single crochet, chain 2, between your second and your third. So if you can't tell by now, we're doing these all in groups of 2. That's why I named this 2 by 2. Chain 2, skip 2 stitches, single crochet between your second and your third, continuing that to the end of the row. At the end, you should have 3 double crochets left. Chain 2, skip 2 stitches, and single crochet on top of your third double crochet. And that should be your increase side. Chain 2, not counting as a stitch, turn your work, 3 double crochets into your first stitch, and then working your 2 double crochets into every chain 2 space all the way down. Now I'm going to leave scrolling on the screen for what size that you are working. This pattern is going to come in size small all the way to 5 extra large. And what you'll see on your screen are the amount of increase repeats that you are going to need for your particular size. Okay. Now we have no increasing with our single crochet rows. We only have the increasing with our double crochet rows. So what you're going to do now is work your way back down. We're repeating row 2 again. And once all of our increase rows are completed, we are just going to keep working, not increasing and not decreasing. And this part is going to end up being where your shoulders will seam up. Okay. So right now your work should look like this. You should have all of your increase rows. Should be a lot more than mine. I just have 3 and mine is really short. So once all of your increase rows are completed, we're chaining 2, which is not counting as a stitch, and we're double crocheting into the first single crochet, and then 2 double crochets into every chain 2 space. The only difference with this row is we're not putting 3 double crochets in the first single crochet. We're just putting 1 because we're not increasing. So then you are going to work all the way down, and you are just going to repeat row 2, which is your single crochet row, and then your double crochet row. And again, I will leave scrolling on the screen how many repeats total you are going to need of the non-increased rows to work the side of your panel. So we're working 1 of the front sides, and then once I'm done with this row, I will flip it over and show you how we are going to work the other side of your increase row. When you finish your non-increase rows going over your shoulder, you're going to make sure to end on a double crochet row. Not putting that single crochet row in there. This is where you'll end, and this is exactly where you will just tie your yarn off. This is where you'll tie your yarn and snip the end. So you'll have however many increase rows and then however many non-increase rows for your shoulder. The front side is your first row. That's the front of our double crochet stitches, and our double crochet stitches should all be facing the same direction. So this is what's going to be considered the right side. Now, to get started on the other side of our panel, we're going to work on the other side of our starting chain. So what I'm going to do here is I am just going to attach my yarn so that I don't have an extra ends to weave in. Get my 5mm hook back, draw up a loop, and chain 2, not counting as a stitch. And now I am going to double crochet into the chain on the other side of each stitch all the way down, and I should have the same amount of stitches on one side that I have on the other side. So what we're doing right now is we're just mirroring the first side of our panel. And when we get to our last chain space that has 3 double crochets here, we're going to put 3 double crochets as well on the other side. And that's going to be the end of the first row. So you'll see we're already starting to create that point. When we put the neckline in, it's going to clean it up a lot nicer here. So you're not going to see any of these bumps. It'll look nice and fresh. Okay, so for row 2 on the other side of the panel, you'll chain 1, turn your work, single crochet into the first stitch, chain 2, skip 2 stitches, between your second and your third stitch, single crochet. Chain 2, skip 2 stitches, between your second and your third stitch, single crochet. And you'll do that all the way down. When you get to the end, now we're going to start row 3 for the other side of the panel. So the only difference with this side and the other side is we're not starting with our increases, we're ending with our increases so that they can be on the same side. Chain 2, not counting as a stitch, double crochet into the first stitch, 2 double crochets into every chain 2 space, going all the way back up the side of the panel. After you've put your second double crochet into your chain 2 space, we're going to put 3 double crochets on top of the last single crochet. And that's going to complete row 3 on the other side. So that's what you're going to continue. Of course, I'm going to leave the numbers again scrolling up on the screen, but this side should match exactly this side. Okay? I'm going to leave you to continue making that. Go ahead and continue your increasing up here and then working your shoulders. So what you'll do is continue. Once you've continued working your increases and then your shoulders on the other side, continue working your increases and your shoulders on the next side of the panel, ending on a double crochet row. You should have one panel that just has a V at the top and the rest of it is a rectangle. Go ahead and complete that, and then I am going to teach you how to get started on the back panel. Okay, getting started on the back panel. I am going to make mine a small swatch, but I'm going to leave the starting chain amounts scrolling up on the screen so you know how many chains to start with. Now into the third chain from the hook, I'm going to place 1 double crochet, and that starting chain 2 does not count as a stitch. And now I'm going to put 1 double crochet into each chain space, going all the way down. We're not increasing and we're not decreasing from our starting stitch numbers. So your stitch numbers should be the exact same, going all the way across the first side of the back panel and the second side of the back panel. And it should be the exact same amount of stitches that either of these sides ended on the front panel. Hopefully that makes some sense to you. Now that I've got my row of double crochet, I'm going to chain 1, turn my work. Row 2 is the same as any of the other row 2s. I'm going to single crochet into the first stitch, chain 2, skip 2 stitches, single crochet between the second and the third stitch, chain 2, skip 2 stitches, single crochet between the second and the third, chain 2. Here at the end I have 3 stitches left. I'm going to skip my 2 stitches, and into the third stitch I'm going to place a single crochet. Now that's the same as every other row 2. Chain 2 and turn your work. Our chain 2 still does not count as a stitch. Double crochet into the first single crochet, and then double crochet 2 times into each chain 2 space. And I will leave now again, scrolling up on the screen, for the amount of double crochet rows you should have for the first side of your back panel. So you will repeat those rows 2 and 3 until you have however many double crochet rows it shows here, ending on a double crochet row. From there, you will snip your yarn, pretending, of course, that my panel is so much bigger than this. Flip my yarn over, and then I'm going to do the same exact thing on the other side, starting my first row with double crochets here, just like we did on the front panel, and all our stitch counts should be the exact same thing, and it should mirror each other. So this is one side, the next side will be here. They will look exactly the same. This is what you will be creating. This right here in the middle is your starting chain. So that middle line looks just a little bit different than all the rest of the lines. We're going to be working out, finishing on a double crochet row, turning, and then working this way. Okay, get both of your panels together and finished, and then I am going to meet you back up here to show you where to mark and how many stitches to mark for your arms, and then how to sew up the top shoulder and the bottom of the side, and then we will get started on the bands. Okay, so now that you have both of your panels completed, one will have a V and the other one will not, making sure that you have the right side out, you know, the front of your double crochet stitches on this side, as well as facing out on this side. So what we're going to do is seam up our shoulders. We are going to count the opening for our arms, place a stitch marker, and then we're going to seam the bottom together all the way to the end. Okay, so whatever you have as far as your rows on the straight side, making sure that you have the proper amount of rows on the back, lining everything up. And I am going to place my stitch marker right at that last increase stitch here through the back on the other side. And that is where we'll seam up our shoulders. Now what I'm going to do is count out my stitches for the arm, and I will leave scrolling on the screen exactly how many stitches you are going to need for your armhole. So how I'm going to do that is I am going to look at the front and the back, line those up, and then placing a stitch marker here. So make sure that your stitch marker is going to fall in between your two double crochet groups. Recount your stitches just to make sure. Make sure that they're lined up in the back. Okay, so that is all correct. So now what I'm going to do is take my yarn end You should have left some yarn to sew up the sides. When I seam my shoulders, I prefer the whip stitch. Now, if you have a different method that you prefer, then go ahead and use your method. No problem. So here I am at the last stitch, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and put my needle through the chain 2 on the other side. Come back through, and I'm going to be working around this double crochet all the way down, but then on the back side I'm going to have that chain 2 space, so that's what I'm going to work around then. So I'm going to come through the double crochet, through the double crochet on the other side, and pull up a loop. Now I am going to continue doing that all the way down, making sure that you have 2 whip stitches per double crochet so that our seams are nice and secure. And then through our single crochet on one side, through the single crochet on the other side. Around the double crochet, around the chain 2 on the other side. And we are just going to keep doing that all the way until we get to the stitch marker where our V starts. Okay, so I've just completed my whip stitch. Now this is the front. So what I'm going to do is just give this a little tug, let my stitches relax so that there is not a popped up seam. And once you do that, it's almost impossible to see where the seaming is. Okay? Now I'll go ahead and whip stitch together. Go ahead and whip stitch together now from your stitch marker all the way down to the bottom. So once you do that, I've got mine done on the other side here. I've got my shoulder completed. I've got my whip stitch all the way down. And once you finish that out, we are going to meet right back here to start the arms. And we're going to keep our arms in the same pattern all the way down to when we make our sleeve ribbing. Now these are, like I said, they're going to be in rounds, so it's going to be a little bit different than the front and back, but I'll teach you how we're going to do that. Go ahead and finish your whip stitching out with your panels, the top and the sides, and I'll meet you right back here. Okay, so getting started on our neckline. Now remember, we do want to do a neckline, otherwise we pull way too far and it's just going to look a little bit wonky. So we are going to take our 5mm crochet hook. Go ahead and get a slip knot on there. And we're going to join our yarn at whichever shoulder will allow you to work forward, okay? So right here at our shoulder seam, this is where we're going to join our yarn. And we're just going to put a single crochet. All right? Now here into this single crochet that's on top in between my double crochet row, I'm going to put a single crochet there as well. So now what we're going to do is we are going to chain 2 and single crochet into our single crochet. Chain 2, single crochet into the side of the next single crochet. So we're skipping all our double crochets here. Chain 2, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, and this is just what we're going to do all the way down, all the way around actually. So when you get right here to the middle, this is where our single crochet will be, right in that middle center spot. Chain 2, and now working up the side of the other side of the V, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, oops, so we're doing this all the way around. We're actually going to do 2 rows of this. So I'm going to show you how we're going to work the top shoulder join again, and then I'm going to work across the back, and then I'm going to leave you to work across the back on your own, and I will meet you right back at the shoulder join for the next row. Okay, so here's our shoulder join. There is a single crochet, join, and then a single crochet. So we're single crocheting into the single crochet into the join, and then single crochet into the single crochet on the other side. Okay, and then we're chaining 2, and then working our single crochets across the back, skipping our double crochets between our chain 2. So go ahead and finish out the back, and I will meet you back at the other top of the shoulder. Okay, so here I am. This is where we started at this shoulder join. My last single crochet is here. So I'm going to single crochet right into that last one, and then I'm going to slip stitch to my first single crochet to join. Okay, now I'm going to chain 1, single crochet. Skipping this single crochet, I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to single crochet into my chain 2 space. Chain 2, single crochet into your next chain 2 space. You're going to do that all the way down until we get to the deep part of the V, and I will show you what we're going to do there. Okay, here we are coming up to, this is the deep point of our V-neck in the front. So I'm going to do my last single crochet here. And now what I'm going to do is chain 2, and then I'm going to do a double crochet 2 together. One in this single crochet, one in this chain 2 space, and one in this chain 2 space. So yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, pull through 2, do not complete your double crochet. You should have 2 loops on your hook still. Do the same thing over here. Yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2, and now you should have 3 double crochets together. Yarn over, pull through all 3. Okay? Chain 2, skipping that chain 2 space that was just worked, single crochet in the next. And that's it. Chain 2, single crochet in the next, chain 2. And that's all you're going to do to finish it out. So you're going to work your way up to the shoulder join. Let me get to the shoulder join. And remember here at the shoulder join how we had 2 single crochets, remember here at the shoulder join we had 3 single crochets. We're going to skip this one and skip this one, and only working into the middle one, chain our 2, single crochet in the middle, chain our 2, skipping that, single crocheting into the chain 2 space. And now you're going to work the same thing all the way across the back, and join here in this last single crochet where you started with the slip stitch, okay? So when you finish your neckline, it should look like this. It actually should be a little bit more scrunched up. Now the reason we did those chain twos are so that it could not stretch out. So what you want to do is just give it a little bit of tug like this and help your stitches relax, and you should have that nice clean neckline. Okay, so now that I have my shoulder and my sides seamed up, I'm going to take my yarn, still working with my 5mm hook, and I'm going to attach my yarn where the stitch marker is. Now your stitch marker is in between these two stitches. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to create a single crochet two together through this side and this side. So with your yarn on your hook, pull up a loop, go into the next side, pull up a loop, and you should have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through all 3. So our first stitch is that single crochet 2 together. Now what we're going to do is chain 2, skipping these 2 stitches, single crocheting in between the second and the third, chain 2, skipping 2, single crocheting in between. And that's what you're going to do all the way around until you reach the beginning. I will meet you back at the beginning to show you how to get started on your next row. When you get to the top of your shoulder, you are going to have this 2 double crochets here, and then this space here where we whip stitch together. So what we're going to do is we will put a single crochet into that last space, chain 2, skipping where we whip stitched, putting a single crochet before your first 2 double crochet group. So it should look like this. And then we'll continue doing our chain 2s and our single crochets. Okay, here I am at the bottom of my shoulder. This is our first single crochet 2 together. I'm sorry, at the bottom of the armpit. I've done my chain 2. My last space has the single crochet 2 together. So that's where I'm going to join my yarn, is at the top of that first single crochet, and that's what we will slip stitch to join. Now we are going to be working into our chain 2 spaces. So what you'll do is slip stitch over to join. Now you can do a chain 2 and then double crochet. You can do a chain 3 counting as your double crochet, or you can do a stacked single crochet. Whatever method that you want to do to create that first double crochet of your row, go ahead and do that. I'm going to show you how to do a stacked single crochet. So we're going to chain 1, put a single crochet into that space. Now into this first loop, there's 2 front loops on your single crochet. Into that second one, not the one on the top, but the one in the front, you're going to go through, pull up a loop, and put a single crochet. And that is a stacked single crochet that's replacing my first double crochet. Now we're going to yarn over and do our second double crochet, skipping the single crochet and working 2 double crochets into our chain 2 space. And those are the rows that you are going to repeat. So when you get back around, I'm going to teach you how we're going to join here to set it up so that we're working our single crochet into the space before our 2 double crochets. So let me finish out this round and I'll meet you right back here. Okay, so I've just completed the first double crochet row of our sleeve, and we're going to join this a little bit differently. So into our first double crochet here, we're going to go into the top of that stitch, and instead of slip stitching, we're going to join with a single crochet. And what that's going to do is going to help us work right back into this space so that our seam doesn't move. So put a single crochet into that space, chain 2, skip 2 double crochets, double crochet in between the second and the third. Now you are just going to repeat those single crochet and the double crochet rows, ending on a double crochet row before we start our wristband. And I will leave scrolling on the screen the amount of double crochet rows you are going to need per size. Now this can be customized, of course, if you have shorter arms, or if you're a taller person, you have longer arms. So you can keep growing that arm until just about 2 inches, 1 to 2 inches before your wrist. I'm going to grow my arm to the proper size for my sizing, and then I will come back, meet you, and teach you how to make the arm band. Okay, so here I am. I have finished out the sleeve. You should have just repeated that single crochet and double crochet row. Remember, there are no increases and there are no decreases. So here at my last round, I'm 5'7", so I made my arms 22 rows long. Now you can adjust yours and customize yours to the proper length that you need yours. So what I'm going to do here is just slip stitch to the first stitch to join. We're not joining with a single crochet because we're not doing the single crochet row. Now we're going to switch to our 4mm hook. Okay, so what we're going to do here for the band is to chain 16. We're chaining 16. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And then we're going to single crochet into the second chain from the end, or from the hook, and single crochet in every chain after that. So we chained 16. Now you should have 15 single crochets going down the chain. Okay, so there I have my 15, and what I'm going to do now is find the next stitch, and I'm going to slip stitch. Go into the next stitch, slip stitch, and do it one more time. So we're slip stitching 3 times in between our rows. You will turn your band, and now we are going to single crochet 15 times again, starting with the first single crochet that we ended with. So 1. Now when we single crochet back down, we're doing single crochet into the back loop only, and that's going to help us create our ridges and make our wristband more expandable. So take your single crochets all the way down with 15 single crochets into the back loop only. When you get to the last stitch, don't skip that last stitch. You'll chain one, you'll turn your work, and now we're going to single crochet back again into the back loop only. You should still have 15 single crochets. And when you get to the base of your sleeve, you'll slip stitch that 3 times and continue to repeat that until you get all the way around. So go ahead and do that, and when we get back around to this side, I'll teach you how we're going to slip stitch it all together. Okay, so I have worked my rows here back and forth, attaching to my seam, slip stitching 3 times in between when you start your next row, and I'm right down here at my last row. So I want to show you what to do. So here at the last row, I have 2 stitches left. Now this design is in multiples of 2, but we're slip stitching 3 times. So your seam could fall going this way, or your seam can fall going this way. It's really just going to kind of depend on where you're at. So I have this stitch is worked already. I'm going to slip stitch into the next double crochet, and the last one is here where I'm slip stitching into. So I only have 2, I don't have 3 to slip stitch into, and that's just fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to fold my band inside out. You don't really need to put your whole sweatshirt inside out. And I'm going to work my slip stitch row to close just the way I would have worked my next row. We're just going to try and keep it seamless. So how we're going to do that is to go into the back loop only of the first stitch, just like normal, as if we were adding an extra row, and then find the chain of the 15th single crochet on this side, and you're just going to go into that chain space and slip stitch. And we're going to do that again. Back loop only of the next stitch, moving on the other side of your sleeve, the next chain space, and slip stitch. And that's it. So when you get to the end, you will fasten off and weave in your ends. And we will also then begin on the bottom band. We're pretty much going to be doing the same thing with a different amount of stitches on the bottom of our sweater. So let me finish this up and I will show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so now we've got both sleeves done, right? Both sleeves are done, our shoulders are seamed up, our sides are seamed up. Next thing, the band that we just completed here, we're gonna do the same thing on the bottom of the sweater. Okay, so you are going to join your yarn at any side, whichever side you like. Still working with your 4mm hook. I am going to find where my seam is. This is where I whip stitched. I'm going to find where my seam is, and this is where I whip stitched. So I'm going to start right there, right at the same spot where I whip stitched into. Now I'm going to chain 18. Our bands, we're chaining 16, and our bottom band here is going to be 18. Now if you like a wider band on your waist, no problem, chain more to your desired size. If you want it smaller, then chain less. But our wrists were 15. The wrists that we made were 15 stitches wide, which is a little over 3 inches. So I want my waistband to be just a little bit longer. So I'm gonna chain my 18. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, I wanted my 18, so I'm going to add 1 for height. And now I'm going to single crochet into the first chain space. And then I'm going to single crochet into every stitch beyond. And that's going to give me my 18 single crochets. Here I should have my 18 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Now where most people mess up with these kinds of bands is they don't count their stitches. Count your stitches. Whether you're counting your stitches as you're doing them across, or if you just stitch across mindlessly and then count them when you go back, that'll eliminate a lot of headache that you have for an uneven band. Okay, so remember in the arm band we did 3 slip stitches. Those were easy to see because they were in, the end of our double crochets. So how we're going to do this here is we are going to count the body of this double crochet as 1 slip stitch. And then we are going to count this single crochet space as a slip stitch. And now we're going to count the top of that double crochet where that single crochet is worked. That's going to be our 3rd slip stitch. When you come back down the other way, I'll show you. It'll be the same thing. The body of the stitch, the single crochet, the body of the top of the double crochet, and then the body of the stitch, the single crochet, the top of the double crochet. Okay, so now I'm going to turn my work. I will show you, so don't worry, I'll show you one more time. I'm going to turn my work and I'm going to find my first single crochet. And I'm going to single crochet back loop only, again, just like we did on our wrist. And I should have 18 single crochets all the way down. Okay, so now I just did my last single crochet. I'm going to chain 1. And I'm going to turn my work and I'm going to work my way right back up the band again. Okay, here we are back at the band. We're going to slip stitch into the top of the double crochet, the double crochet body, and the top of the single crochet. Turn your work and repeat that all the way around your sweater, coming back down this way. And then I'll meet you back when we seam these sides and we start to put our neckline on. Okay, so I have completed my bottom band. I seamed it together on the inside just like I did on the arms. Now, one of the things you do want to remember is when you are working your band, make sure that you're working with your right side out. If you can notice, it's a much cleaner look here, but if you turn it around, we have those little divots. And you don't want that to be on the outside, so we're going to keep that on the inside, which is why we're working on the right side. And then, of course, you're just going to want to weave in all of your ends, snip those off, and wear your sweatshirt. All right. Thank you everybody for watching Jolie Knots Crochet. Don't forget to find me on Facebook under Jolie Knots Crochet. Join the Jolie Knots Crochet community group on Facebook and show us what you've created.